Hey everyone, welcome to the Hello Road podcast. I think for this episode number 33, we need to dive right in. Paul and I are quite excited about today's topic. It's vans. Yep, that's right. Mm-hmm. This episode is all about those wonderful boxes on wheels. And the first vehicle that I ever owned was a van. So this is definitely a topic that I'd really like to get into. So Paul, this episode was the genesis was kind of all about around you on this one. So why don't you kick things off?
Well, yeah, I mean, the van, I can call it the van movement ever since the whole Radwood thing's been going on is kind of thanks to one person. I think it's a person. I don't know. It might be a van, but there's a Twitter account out there called It's Van Time. And it's kind of spawned a lot of other accounts too. Like I know there's like It's Wagon Time and who knows? There's tons of other ones too. But you know, I thought for this episode, what would be really cool? What if we got in contact with this It's Van Time person and had them on the show? So is there a third person on the show with us tonight?
Well, hello.
We have a third person on the show. We actually have It's Van Time.
Hey, Hello Road listeners. Do you know what time it is?
I think it's van time.
It's van time. Oh, we should have planned that better. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, I know. So I guess the other thing is, the Van Time Twitter account, when I first saw it several months back, I didn't know who was behind it. I don't know if this is the type of thing that you want to kind of keep it under wraps, or would you like to reveal yourself to everybody? It's totally up to you.
That's the funny thing. Since starting this account, it was originally supposed to be a group account. I didn't coin the term Van Time or It's Van Time. That actually goes to Alex Hevesy, who also known as Lance Tedford, a noted member of Weird Car Twitter and also a contributor to various automotive outlets, including Jalopnik. And he was just saying that it was van time, and he would post up some vans. And so I cannot take credit for the name. What happened, though,
fine. It's okay.
Is that, being on what I've come to call Weird Car Twitter with my other account, I was in, as I often find myself, in a thread talking about high-performance vans or something else, and somebody said, there should be a whole account of just high-performance vans. And let me just say, the next reply came from a new account, and that's when It's Van Time was born.
Nice. So there it is. So the genesis of the account. Now, how long has the account been around? Because it seems like it's been a good couple years now that it's been around, posting up awesome pictures.
It started in, I don't know, like September or October of 2018. So it's just over a year and some change at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, a year and a half.
I was looking through it, and it was, there's a decent size following with It's Van Time, and looking through some of the followers, there's you got a lot of blue check marks following you. I mean, that's pretty awesome and pretty great for just being a little over a year or 2 years old. So awesome.
Yeah, I'm happy with it and a little bit surprised. But, it turns out that everybody in automotive media loves vans.
It's true. And looking today, seeing what It's Van Time was posting about the new Pacifica that was coming out, there was quite a buzz about it. And, I think it might be, at least so far, the star of the Chicago Auto Show, the new 2021 Pacifica. And it's nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we couldn't have recorded on a better day because that was, I didn't even know that there was a new one coming. They had a teaser on their site. And last night when I went to bed, it's like, this is going to be unveiled in 6 hours.
Whoa.
Like,
you need to get on this.
I'm going to wake up to a new Pacifica tomorrow.
That should be the
what a day.
That should be the tagline. I'm going to wake up to a new Pacifica tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. I'm sort of curious, like you talk about, like a lot of people in automotive media being really big fans of vans. I'm kind of curious if that is maybe partially due to the fact that vans are they're not really in favor anymore. It's all about crossovers. It's all about SUVs. It's all about CUVs. I think maybe, is it just a little bit of nostalgia there? What do you think is kind of driving that?
I think that's part of it. But the fact is that vans never stopped being excellent at what they do, be it a minivan, cargo van, and the fact that, the minivan's heyday in this country is generally over, even though they sell well. It's just, it's not a thing that a lot of manufacturers are competing in anymore. Mm-hmm. And, so if the nostalgia factor's there, but I think, and hopefully we can get into it, that, vans are poised to make a comeback in the US. They never went away in other countries. Mm-hmm. Just go to Japan.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we should kind of dive back into the history of the van a little bit, go back to the 60s and 70s, looking back at like how big van culture was in the 70s with all those psychedelic, colorful murals painted on the side of vans and a lot of factory packages or manufacturer paint packages that you could get where there was these pretty rad color, choices you could get right from the factory. Just a box on wheels. We should talk about why they were so popular back then.
I don't consider myself an expert in the golden age of the vanning era, which is, it's got to be the 70s. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you guys, but that's before I was born. Mm-hmm. But, it was clearly a vehicle in favor for expression for people customizing in the aftermarket and just, making it whatever they wanted. And now we look back and see the Ford cruising van and the Chrysler actually coined the term the Van Clan for their club of like, you could right away and get a membership card back. We, of course, have co-opted it with this account.
Yeah.
Use that. But like, when I look at that, I'm like, this was probably the manufacturers trying to get on a trend that existed organically. Kind of like when you see a street tuning kind of focused trim level of a car now.
Yeah.
And so maybe, I don't know, the hardcore bearded vanners of the day may have looked down on that as like, oh, this is so lame. Look, FOMO Co. is trying to get in on this with the stripes.
But that totally makes sense. I actually was I came across the new Dodge Street Van, which was I guess it was an option package you could get with the tradesman in the 70s. And it does, I didn't really think about it until you just mentioned it right now that, the whole street van, like a logo on the side of your van that said street van, you're probably right. It maybe wasn't really that cool. You kind of wanted to do those types of mods yourself.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, the good thing is though, those vans, I mean, nostalgia is powerful, but
yes,
you just look at the aesthetic of the 1960s and 70s American vans and also British vans for that matter, and other European vans from every country. And, they're just fundamentally good.
Yes. Yeah.
And when you see them on, fat tires, aftermarket wheels, fender flares, it's all the things that we want to do to a muscle car, to, anything. It just has a little bit more whimsy when it's on a van.
And even more so when there's like, if we're talking 70s vans, like a Wizard or like, a Barbarian or something painted on the side of it, it just makes it that much more. So, it's kind of funny. I was in just thinking about vans and everything over the last couple of weeks. I kept coming back to this idea that maybe Volkswagen was kind of like the reason for the van culture to start, because like the bus, I call them buses, like, it was kind of seen as like a hippie mobile. And then like, as the 70s progressed, it's like the hippies, maybe this is the way it worked. They kind of just transitioned from the buses to the big American vans, and then, started the van-ins and all that other fun stuff right there. So in a way, it's almost like prior to the Volkswagen bus, which I think came out here in like 50, 55. I'm probably wrong. 56. I'm still probably wrong and still guessing. But, prior to that, there really wasn't much out there other than like, some of the trucks that had the covers on them that were similar to like a van. But I really think the bus was kind of the first in its type of automotive genre to exist, at least in the States, or to take hold.
Do we know? Yeah, and I'm also sort of curious. Like, this would be a good question, maybe Lee knows, or maybe we should ask our audience. I don't know what the first vehicle that was a van-like shape that had a sliding door.
That is an excellent question, because, in terms of determining, which I get questions all the time on the account of, what makes a van a van.
Sure.
I kind of have the joke that if it's got a sliding door, it's a van. But then people are like, well, this doesn't have sliding doors. And I'm like, well, neither do a lot of domestic vans. The old VWs
the barn doors
at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure what the first van to have a sliding door was.
Yeah. All right. So we'll have to figure that out. We'll have to report back next week.
Do a deep dive into it, and we'll find it out.
The nice thing about having so many knowledgeable people interacting with me on Twitter is that if there's a question like this, there's someone who knows the answer.
Sure. Yes.
And we'll receive it in short order.
Yes. Somebody will let us know very quickly. Maybe, yeah. All right. Maybe if you wouldn't mind, maybe it's Van Time could ask that question. That'd be kind of cool to figure the answer to that one.
We'll see how long it takes to get the answer.
Let's see if I can make the magic happen.
Yeah.
Very good. Your first van, Ethan, your first vehicle was a van, and I know we touched on it maybe like episode 1 or 2, but
I think it was episode 1. Yeah.
Let's remind our wonderful audience what was it again? What year and all that other fun stuff?
So my dad was into vans. So when I was growing up, he had a 78 Econoline 150 cargo van that he put seats in the back of. And then when that one kind of started to kick the bucket, he bought an 83 Ford Econoline 150. Wasn't quite as good. It had more emissions equipment on it. So it didn't have the same motor, had the same inline 6 and 3-speed on the 3 on the tree, but wasn't quite as good. And I actually ended up getting that one as my first car when it was on its last legs. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it was pretty neat to have my first vehicle be a van with, 3-speed, the iconic inline 6. So that was my first vehicle. It was wonderful because you could fit so much crap into it. I used to, I probably mentioned this before, but I had my friend play drums. We set up a drum set in the back of it, and I had my friend play drums while we were driving around. It was just so great to have that much space. In your first vehicle. So that was a great vehicle, and it's kind of informed a lot of what I like about cars. Now I have the van that I have now, which isn't currently running, is a weird van, and some might not even consider it a van. I would, because it's got sliding doors. My '86 Nissan Stanza wagon. I might argue, and I don't know if we want to get into this debate or not, but I might argue that was actually the first minivan. Because
interesting.
Chrysler would try to say that their minivans were first. Renault with their first. They would probably try to argue that they were first, but I don't know. I think it was the Stanza wagon, the Prairie, because actually it was introduced in Japan. I think in 82 or 83.
I thought it was earlier than that. I thought it was 78. Maybe. I don't know. I'm probably wrong.
It's not that early. But yeah, it didn't come to the States until 85 or 86, okay. I think. So
they had to engineer in at least a tiny, tiny bit of safety for the US market.
Safety and Stanza wagon do not go together. Those are two words that are never spoken in the same sentence, other than for talking about how unsafe it is.
Yeah, Matt Wood loves to talk about the terrifying Nissan Prairie.
Yes,
it's one of his favorite Twitter topics.
Yes,
but then I have driven experience.
Yes, go ahead.
We all have experience with the US spec version where at least it has a rear bumper.
Yes.
If you look at a JDM one, the hatch opens up all the way below the floor.
Oh, that's funny. Well, and the funny thing is, I'm curious if the JDM version had the rear jump seats, because you could get those as an option for the US version. You could actually seat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in this little van. So yeah, I'm curious if the JDM version had that, where the people in the jump seats were the rear bumper.
It's so safe. It's
kind of like your legs being the crumple zone in a Previa.
Yeah. Well, take a look at the picture of the 85 Prairie and imagine how that does in a rear impact.
Yes. Okay. So, I mean, that might be a good segue into weird vans. I mean, we haven't really touched on minivans but I think there's a lot of weird vans out there. If you think about the Access. Is the Access had sliding doors too? The Nissan Access, that one did, but that one actually had a B pillar.
It did.
And then there were, and then there were those
pillarless sliding doors. Are the ultimate in alternative doors on production vehicles.
I know, it's so weird how they latch together. I was trying to think of some other weird ones. Like I kind of like the 90s Mazda MPV because you could get it all-wheel drive. There's a couple. I mean, the Dustbuster vans were weird.
That's the
Yeah,
they sold a ton of them.
They've certainly got their fans.
Yes.
That's the thing with the MPV though. Is it a van because it doesn't have sliding doors, right? It's 4 doors.
Well,
so that's I get that question all the time. It's like, well, this can't be a van, and I feel like running this account has expanded my understanding of what can be a van. There's a lot of people that follow the account who live in the UK or in Europe, and like the tax laws in the UK and Ireland are such that anything with a cargo area in the back and no rear seat is basically titled as a van.
Mm-hmm.
It might look exactly the same as a regular hatchback from the outside, but that's how we get things like the Land Cruiser Commercial, which is a Land Cruiser Prado with a single row of seats.
Sure.
And I took me a little while, but I was like, yeah, okay, these are definitely vans where you're from, and they go on the van alignment chart.
When you think about, there's plenty of full size vans. Actually, my Econoline, my 83 Econoline, did not have a sliding door. It had
barn doors,
3 doors on one side. Yeah,
like the side opening ones. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So I don't think a sliding door.
Still clearly a van. It's not a requirement to be a van. It's just something that if you have one, I'm going to argue that it's a van.
Sure.
Even if it's the front door, like on a Toyota Porta or the Peugeot 1007, I think.
Mm-hmm.
If you look it up, it's like a 3-door hatchback.
Oh yes,
front doors or sliding doors. Like that's a bit of a daring stance to take.
Yes,
but once the alternative door clause is obeyed, you can check off a huge number of vehicles.
Sure. Well, and actually, even my Scion XB, the first gen that I have, I believe sometimes when you're searching for parts, it comes up as a van. So somebody somewhere in some database decided that was a van, and I also believe and my insurance kind of classifies it as a van. So yeah, that's maybe another gray area. What is a van?
It's if you keep making the nose of it shorter, you keep making it taller, and especially if you keep making it look more like a box and or egg, it just becomes more van-like. And I wouldn't argue that an XB is a van, but if it had a sliding door,
yes, definitely a van.
Which it should.
It should. Yeah,
that'd be kind of awesome. Imagine one of those with a sliding door on the side. I think that would be cool. I got a new idea for you, Ethan.
Okay, I'm gonna not do that.
I made the world's most unsafe Scion XB.
I cut out the B pillar and I turned it into a Stanza wagon, a Scion wagon. Yeah,
there we go.
I think the most disappointing thing about the Toyota TJ Cruiser concept, which is I still believe is going to make production.
I hope so.
The most disappointing part about it is that it has a B pillar.
Yeah. The disappointing part is that it will not kill you when you get into side impact.
I know, but Ford has tried the B-Max, which I just sent you guys the link to. That had no B pillar. That's a somewhat modern vehicle, although it apparently, Google tells me, was killed to make room for the 2018 EcoSport.
Yes. Yep.
Not too happy about that.
No. Luckily, I haven't seen that many of them, so I don't have to get too angry when I do see them.
Ford's doing a lot for fans of the van, though, in the U.S.
Well, because for the longest time, it was just the Econoline or the E-Series or whatever they called. And then I know the little Transit Connect showed up, and then all of a sudden, the Transit was here, and then now I can't even keep track of all of the different commercial vans, I guess is what we'd call something like that. Yeah. Because that's who uses it. You don't really see them as family transport. You see them more like, plumbers, repair peoples.
Or people converting them into hashtag van life.
Yeah.
I've seen, it's funny because I actually looked at a few Transits a few weeks ago because my wife and I are kind of considering getting one, and, nothing crazy. We don't want to like sell our house and live in the back of a Transit or anything like that. But it would be kind of nice to have something that you can. I don't go camping that often. I'm kind of a shitty camper. So like having a van would be kind of good for that. Just throw an air mattress in the back of it. put a cooler, or maybe something pretty simple. But I think the Transits are really popular for that because the used ones aren't too expensive. If you compare it to
one question I have is, are you looking at Transits or Transit Connects? Because
Transits.
Those are two.
Yeah.
Okay, full size.
Yeah, full size. Yeah.
Even to this day, people, if they don't see both of them next to each other for scale, people can kind of mix them up. And
yeah, that's a good point.
You can blame Ford's branding for that, but like, oh, look at those Transits. They look cool. And it's like, yeah, that they are, but two completely different vehicles. But in Europe, you've got the Transit Courier, the Transit Connect, the Transit Custom, and the Transit. Those are in an ascending order of size.
Yeah, exactly.
Ford decided the US didn't need anything smaller than a Connect. And so that's what we get. And sadly, they don't offer the in-betweener size, which is the Custom. I think that would do really well here.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's bigger than Transit Connect. Of course it would do well here.
Well, weird vans, I mean, we can go on and on about them, but I kind of want to do a little dive into the minivan. Like, that's kind of the thing that
this is a topic near and dear.
Yeah, it's kind of something that the whole van movement that's been going on, there's been, for me growing up in the late 80s, 90s, that time, it was like seeing vans, like minivans, was kind of just like, as like a car enthusiast. You're like, that's what you have to get when you're an adult. But then now, 30 years later, it's just like, oh man, look at that awesome Previa. And it's like a nostalgic thing. And that's really, I think, part of what's growing this whole van movement is the sense of nostalgia, because everybody that grew up in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, 90s, either their family had a van of some sort. Maybe it wasn't a minivan, but it was a van, or they were transported around from their friend's mom or dad had a Aerostar or whatever the case may be. So it's kind of like a nostalgic thing. And we're kind of looking back at them like that.
Hearing you describe the Aerostar, I'm smiling. That's what my friend had as his college car. What happened is a lot of us, were driven to school in a minivan, and then that became our first car too.
It did.
If you came of age in a certain time. That was the car I learned to drive in, was a 95 Windstar.
Ooh. Windstar. Ford did such a good name with their names. Aerostar, Windstar, Freestar.
Freestar.
Great. That was actually a great van up until the point where I was moving to college with an entire Windstar full of all my worldly possessions, and it blew the engine on I-5.
Oh,
so that wasn't great. But I had really fond memories of it. Besides that, but at the time we had cross-shopped the entire minivan segment, including the Eurovan. Which, looking back now, if I had convinced my parents, as being their car and driver, reading, snot-nosed kid, if I had convinced them to get the Eurovan with the pop top instead, that would have held value.
Yeah, definitely.
And also may be still on the road today. But,
I can't tell you the last time I saw a Windstar. It was maybe 10 years ago. Yeah, I don't know if there's many of them left on the road.
And that's the funny thing. I see on my relatively short commute to work I will always see a Previa. And it's not like...
Yeah, always. I constantly see Previas in LA.
Everywhere. And Siennas, all those things.
LA is where all the Previas went.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. There's a fair amount here in NorCal too, but every time I go down to LA, I'm floored by the
Previa population.
The quantity of Previas. and they're all getting it done too. You'll see ones that are being used for work. You'll see them just driving around.
And I've seen a lot of people still using them for carting kids around. The last time I went to Legoland with my daughter, my family, I saw 2 Previas hauling families. So it's not like they're just being relegated to beater status, to carry around ladders and stuff like that. They're actually still carrying families around.
I think the reason why the Previa is so endearing, besides the styling, being futuristic and now future nostalgic, is it really is from the era where everyone was trying to figure out what to do for their minivan.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Mazda ended up being rear-wheel drive with regular doors. I think the first generation MPV was actually based on the 929 chassis.
Yep.
So that's weird.
Yep.
Toyota was like, well, we'll just evolve our, sort of commercial vehicle. Here in the US, it was just called van.
Exactly.
We'll just evolve that. Yeah. So mid-engine rear-wheel drive, sure. Meanwhile, the Chrysler had been front-wheel drive since, a full generation earlier. But, it was a neat era, and I don't think we'll see anything like that again.
No, that's a really good point. That it was a time when they were really trying to figure that out, and it is pretty amazing that there were that many different approaches that were all on sale at the same time.
Yeah,
but that kind of that's not the case now. Obviously, I think it's really very, very, very similar.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's kind of like
at least in the U.S.
It's like a Galapagos Island thing. Things evolve to differently depending on the local conditions. Here, minivan evolved to a very specific thing, but in Japan, there's still all kinds of shapes and sizes of vans. That just and drivetrain configurations that just wouldn't work in this market or just weren't as profitable to make. And there was like that last gasp when Nissan did a Quest just for the US market that was incredibly weird.
Yeah.
And they did a lot of market research and had a really avant-garde interior. The exterior too was quite striking, and nobody bought that one.
That dashboard was quite weird and also very, very early 2000s looking. I think there was a couple two-tones you could get on that. Wasn't there?
I think so.
Yeah.
Get the skylight roof too with the two longitudinal glass panels in the roof to light up the interior.
Yeah, that is a weird looking car.
And then for the next generation, they're like, screw it, we'll just bring the Japanese van over, and that's why we got that last gen. That's like full on ready to be a VIP machine. It's almost a JDM L Grand.
Speaking of some of the JDM stuff, the one that stands out that I actually think would sell pretty well over here, and I'm going to forget the name of it, of course, like I always do, but it's the Lexus van that came out, the super luxurious one. That I think there's a place for.
So you're talking about the LM300 and LM350H are the Lexus versions, but the Toyota Alphard and Velfarth.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. And it's funny because I see this one a lot, and this vehicle being sort of loved by people in the automotive media and people that like vans. But it's funny that those same people are very critical of huge gaping maws, huge Lexus grills on other vehicles, but somehow on this vehicle, it's not a big deal. It's fun, this vehicle has probably the largest grill I've ever seen on any vehicle, but
like anything that's not a commercial truck.
Yeah, but that never comes up. It's never like, oh, I can't believe Lexus put that huge grill on this van. I think it's more of like, I just wish they would sell this here in the US.
I just think that it wrapped all the way around on the LM300.
Yeah,
it's just there, but it's a good example of a vehicle that I've got no illusions about its sales prospect in the US. That's $100,000 vehicle.
Yeah,
and the van is not there in the minds of the public in the US where you can do that. But in the number one market for that van, I believe, is going to be China, where like an executive class, limo van setup is already the accepted way for high-end people to get around, being driven, chauffeured in the back of those things. And so the LM is like laser focused at that market.
It's going to have to wait 25 years to get mine then, because they're so awesome.
Okay, well, so in 2044, that's when I'm going to be showing up to Cars and Coffee with my Toyota JPN Taxi.
Ah, yes. Okay, so I have to look this one up.
Also a van.
Okay. So, okay. That's pretty neat. Okay, so Toyota JPN Taxi. I like that one. That's so 2044 is that's when that will be available to be imported.
Something like that.
Okay.
It's been out for a year or two in Japan.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty nice.
So yeah, it's kind of like Toyota's take on a London cab. Yep. It's supposed to be the standard cab because Japanese taxis, just like we have the Crown Victoria in service as taxis and cop cars, like way past its normal lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
All the taxis in Japan were like Toyota Crown Comforts, no relation, which are also old 1980s rear-wheel drive sedans.
Sure.
And so this is like, they're like, okay, we're getting the Olympics for 2020. We got to have like something the rest of the world will see.
We got to do something about this.
Yeah, it was like an image problem. I think to have these old diesel sedans driving around.
Definitely.
Awesome.
The other thing I'm trying to figure out is getting into the current state of vehicles and trying to figure out, like you said, vans are really popular in other places, but what happened here in the US? If you look at the usefulness of a van and the amount of space, the ease of getting in and out of them, the amount of cargo you can store in them, the fact that a lot of them are cheaper than some of the SUVs that are in the same kind of, people are cross shopping them with. What happened? There's this sort of stigma that they're soccer dad and soccer mom mobiles, but I feel like that's what the SUV, that's what the crossover has become. And can we just find a way to make the crossover not cool? How do we do that?
Well, here's the thing. I think that might be happening. I think the reason why everybody wanted to get into an SUV, along with marketing and huge profitability for the automakers to base their passenger vehicles on light trucks, but they literally had advertisements where the guy was embarrassed to have a minivan.
That's true.
And like you'll be so much happier and more masculine if you have a SUV. And they've been doing that for like literally 20 years now, or more. So at this rate, as somebody just pointed out on Twitter, more than 50% of vehicles sold in the US are SUVs. And, that is the family mobile now. Like everyone has one, everyone drives one. And, outside of weird car Twitter, I mean, and the pendulum might swing the other way because choosing to have a van now is it's a choice that you're being different.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Well, and it's also just very strange that we've sort of evolved to the point where it's really a form over function maybe that's the case maybe that's the way it's always been, but really it seems that a lot of what you're paying for in a crossover, you're not getting a whole lot of usefulness out of it. If you look at I have a press car this week, which I'm pretty happy about. It's the new Chevy Blazer, because pretty much any press car that I can get is probably going to be a crossover because that's all they want to push. But it's interesting, like you think about how much space is in that vehicle, how big the front overhang is and how little space there is in the back for cargo versus a van that would probably cost you less money. It's just baffling to me, and I can't wrap my head around it. Mm-hmm. Is what I'm trying to say.
It's really frustrating, and I think the way an automaker could go about marketing a new van is look at all this cool stuff you can do with it, and in the same amount of space as your CUV, you can actually, have an adventure mobile. Mitsubishi's tried nothing in this market in a long time, but I'm like, why not give it a shot? Bring us the next generation Delica. Nobody else is coming from the factory with something like that right now. Mm-hmm. People are safarying all the things, and people are, converting other older vans into campers. But they could just walk right in, say, "Here's your lifted 4-wheel drive van." Just coin a new market segment for it. Call it the adventure utility van,
and that's a huge thing right now. I see tons of those lifted, I'm assuming 4-wheel drive Mercedes Sprinter vans that, they're usually like in a nice deep gray color or black, and they got a ladder on the back with big knobby tires on it. Mm-hmm. And, those are obviously companies that are outfitting those, but I definitely agree with you that what if there was a mattress that was like that from the factory, or like you said, a Mitsubishi would be a perfect one where they need all the help they can get. But I'm not sure if a van is really going to move the needle for them. This is terrible product advice.
Look, you could die a hero, or
yeah, exactly. Do the right thing.
Yeah,
we tried.
I'm not saying they have to bring the current Delica because it's getting a little old. It was not engineered for the U.S. market, but
sure.
If they live to the next generation, keep it in mind.
Yep, totally, definitely.
I think that's going to be the marketing tack. If the TJ Cruiser is real, Toyota is going to market it whether it has any real off-road capability or not. They're going to market it as a crossover that just happens to have sliding doors.
Yeah, totally.
And if that's what it takes, I'm ready for it.
Oh, for sure. I if they bring that here, I am absolutely buying one, because there's just something really great about a car that is not giving up any corner for a curve where you can't put something, like make sure everything is as square as possible so you can fit as much crap in there as you possibly can. And I believe that, didn't the TJ Cruiser concept have some really kind of innovative, or maybe not innovative, but really unique like cargo systems in there?
The floor is all like hard decking with slats in it. And the front seat folds into the floor. The front passenger seat folds into the floor along with the second row. So you have like a very long load floor or something to sleep on, from the back of the tailgate to the passenger footwell on the front is continuous horizontal space.
Yep. If you look at, like you said, I don't think they're going to, if they bring that vehicle here, they're not going to market it as a van. But you got to imagine that there's definitely got to be some sort of market there. I don't know if you would agree with me, because the Kia Soul still sells very well. I believe it's their best-selling car, and that's essentially a little van.
I love the Soul.
Yeah, there's just maybe not a van, but there was a period of time in the 2000s where box cars, boxes on wheels were a big thing. And I think, I don't know exactly what happened, but, Scion kind of let theirs wither on the vine, and the Element never got updated. So at one point, there was kind of a moment there where boxes on wheels were a thing, and it just kind of fizzled.
Well, I'm really hoping that the TJ can bring that back. As somebody who, I literally own an Element in between my Previa and my Transit Connect. So I have put my money where my mouth is before as well.
You're walking the walk for sure.
So
it would be nice to have another option.
So as of current, you have a Transit right now?
I have a Transit
Connect, or
we have a Transit Connect.
Okay.
So in 2015, I wanted to get a car that we could go do camping and bike riding and do all that so-called lifestyle vehicle stuff. But also I actually cross-shopped all the CUVs on the market, and I actually was really pushing to get a Sienna, but my girlfriend at the time didn't want to drive something so big. So I'm like, all right, Transit Connect. Naturally, it took a lot of convincing at the time before getting it. And once we got it, though, she loves it. I love it. It's a short wheelbase passenger model, which is actually shorter than a Mazda 3 from the front to the back.
Whoa.
Yet you can stick an arcade machine inside it, as I've done a few times.
Oh, okay. There you go. So, that's pretty awesome.
The Element was a truly amazing bit of packaging, because that thing was only like 169 inches long, and inside was like a 6 foot by 5 foot by 5 foot box. Short of something that has the engine under the seats, like these are the most interior volume to exterior length vehicles you can buy in the US. It's kind of a shame that crash safety and other considerations kind of had hoods put on these vehicles, and so that's why the Vanagon is like 8 or 10 feet inside, like from front to back, because the engine's under the back and there's really no front overhang. So you've got an incredible amount of living space for the length of the vehicle. Which brings us to the future of vans, which is EVs.
Yeah. That's something that's interesting. Like the thing that I've actually really enjoyed, like seeing with like the Pacifica when it got when re-released, or whatever they re-released the name for that generation of van, and what was that, 2014, 2015, is when
it's been a few.
When the hybrid came out, I was like, I don't think I've seen a hybrid van. And I mean, that's some alluring thing to get people towards going back towards vans. I was surprised
that it took so long for that. I mean, it just seemed like the Prius had been around for ages, and I guess maybe the manufacturers just saw the writing on the wall for vans. But
and it was surprising that it was from FCA too. You would expect something like that out of Toyota, like maybe a hybrid Sienna or something.
It's good that you mention it because the Previa in other countries is called the Estima.
Yes.
In Japan, it's the Estima. The second gen Estima actually eventually got a hybrid in Japan. It was the first hybrid minivan. Of course,
I didn't know that.
They never bothered to do that for the US. And
Sure.
I also am really surprised. I think we're about to get another generation of the Sienna, and I think it's almost a shoo-in that we're going to have a hybrid this time. But will it be a plug-in hybrid like the Pacifica? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. Because there's other hybrids in the JDM market. What's the Sienta?
Yeah,
is another kind of weird looking van that is available with a hybrid. Does that one have sliding doors? I can't remember.
Yeah, so the Sienta is kind of like the cousin of the JPN Taxi. It's kind of it's a little shorter than a US Transit Connect short wheelbase, but it actually has available with 3 rows of seats. I mean, those seats would be very
tiny,
unusable by the US standards, but yeah, it's a really small 7-passenger van.
Sure. Every once in a while I'll just go to like Toyota's website in Japan and see what they have available. And there's a lot of stuff that I just wish they would bring here, but obviously they won't.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Sienta is, it's not the coolest looking car, but definitely the idea of that car is something that if you could get past the styling, it would be incredibly useful to a lot of people here.
I mean, the Sienta is on TNGA, just like most of Toyota's other modern products. And the TJ Cruiser is basically going to be Sienta sized and, effectively a boxy Sienta, which I'm perfectly okay with.
Sure. Yep.
What do we think about the future of vans with like an all-electric model? Is that something that could be possible sometime soon? Because you think range and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, if you're talking around town, taking, the kids to basketball practice and going to the market or going to your job, which, maybe is 7 or 8 miles away, is that something that might be appealing to the United States? I don't know.
Lots of space for batteries, I guess, as long as you don't have stow and go seats or something. But
yeah, that's a good point because the Pacifica Hybrid does not have stow and go for that reason. The batteries are down there. But, Volkswagen, as much as they've been teasing it for years and not delivering it yet.
For years.
It's looking like they're going to do it. The ID Buzz is a real future vehicle, and it's probably the most exciting new van if you think about it.
That thing is.
It will sell. It's not just on nostalgia. It's a iconic vehicle design. And when it comes back, I think that's going to get people, VW dealers are probably going to screw it up by marking the damn thing up. But, in a perfect world,
$70,000 market adjustment. Yes.
Yeah. I'm not looking forward to that because, I'll be in the market if it's another few years.
I know.
Yeah.
That's, most people don't need that much range. Even if it was a, plug-in hybrid, that would be, a plug-in hybrid van is really probably all that a lot of people need. Most commutes are under 25 miles. So
I think that the Pacifica, even though they don't market it as a plug-in hybrid, I mean, it's just called the Pacifica Hybrid, but that's killer. But I could commute for the better part of a week on its battery-only charge, or at least a couple of days in a row without even charging, and then it'll still go on a road trip. So it's everything about it is great, except I wish it was made by Toyota.
Yeah.
So if the next Sienna does not have a plug-in hybrid, that'll be disappointing because Chrysler's been there already.
Totally. So the whole Radwood scene has gotten like super big over the past few years, and it seems like every show that either we're going to or that we see coverage with, there's more and more vans showing up. And is it just the nostalgia, or are people actually really going out and getting these kinds of vans? I mean, it's a little easier to get them now that Bring a Trailer has a van section on their website, so you can find some really awesome vans. But
I did bid on that Silhouette. I didn't win it, but I did bid on it.
Gorgeous. So good. I think there was a lot of people that we know that were probably bidding on that van. Maybe somebody we know bought it. I don't know.
I don't know. So. We just need to wait and see if it getting tagged in it.
So the Radwood scene with the vans. What do we think this is going to continue, or are we going to start pulling out the barn find? What was the Nissan van that got recalled and all of them got crushed? Like,
I've seen a couple of those for sale. In LA, there was one for sale a couple months ago.
Really?
Was it just called the van? I don't remember. Do you happen to know that?
Sheesh, what was it? It was in Japan. It was the Vanette, I think. And it really may have been Van.
I think it was.
There was this one that was perpetually on Craigslist in California that had a SR20 DET swapped into it.
Whoa!
Oh hell yeah!
And this is a vehicle that's already known for heat issues and fires.
Yeah,
that's what they all caught fire, right? Is that what the issue was, or that most of them were catching fire? The story goes.
Yeah, engine. I believe there was engine fire problems and recalls and class action lawsuits, something like that.
Yeah, it just ended up with a buyback.
Yeah,
Eesh.
That's nuts.
So,
I bet, but the chances are how many Nissan vans were actually sold in the U.S. Maybe the buyback wasn't a big deal.
Yeah,
this is not quite on the level of Dieselgate in terms of the number of vehicles that
it's
had to
60
come back.
cars probably. We were happy to sell 60 vans.
I think the good thing about Radwood and Vans, two things have happened. One, the 80s and 90s, especially for people of a certain age, is the golden age of vans. And, why the Dustbuster van, look at it. I'm not sure it was totally wholly competitive with the vans it was competing with at the time. But now, all you have to do is look at it and be like, yes, that needs to be at Radwood. I saw a pristine one at one of the NorCal Radwoods. And that was, it just stopped me in my tracks. It's like, yes, that is it.
Yeah, I believe at Sonoma Radwood, the muddy, rainy, freezing Radwood, there was that Silhouette, Oldsmobile Silhouette there. And I spent more time looking at that than pretty much any other car at the show. And there were Testarossas and all sorts of other fun stuff there. And I was like, Silhouette, that's what I'm into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember pulling into my elementary school parking lot when I was in elementary school, seeing a Silhouette. Somebody had gotten one, and it was just the most polarizing thing. I was like, that car, and I think this was probably before Back to the Future Part 2 came out, but I was like, that car looks like it just came here from the future, because this is like 1987, 88. I don't know.
Yeah, it looked like a shuttlecraft.
It was just like, what is that? And it was somebody's brand new Silhouette. It just seeing those rear tail lights with like the little grates over it, and it looked like a land speeder from Star Wars. It was just, I was like, that thing is so cool. So, but that was kind of my only real Silhouette story. But at the same time, it made an impact on me. I was like, that it's such an odd shape, but still kind of cool. I don't know.
Well, do you remember? I think we might have talked about this on a previous episode, but if the listeners have never taken a look at the Pontiac Transport concept, the concept vehicle for the Transport was certainly a really cool looking vehicle. And obviously that's something that they weren't really able to quite achieve in the production version.
Oh yeah, that thing is beautiful.
But isn't it? It's like, if that is like the idea of like, the 80s, I think that's what I liked about this, the Transport and the Lumina APV and the Oldsmobile Silhouette, is that it was sort of their idea of what the future looks like. And I don't know if we're really getting a whole lot of that, with all of these crossovers, that everything's kind of looks the same. Mm-hmm. And, this was an era where like, let's really try to release a vehicle, obviously not quite as true to the concept, but they really did try to do something really different.
The thing about vans being futuristic at the time is, these futuristic pods, and the Transport concept is good, is we're not seeing that in real life 2020, but there are signs of life. Have you seen that Canoe EV? Basically looks like the front of a Previa on two sides.
Oh, yes. Yep. Okay.
Even though I'm not super bullish on autonomous vehicles really driving a lot of people around in the near term, this thing is like, it is a van, but
yes, it's also definitely a van.
It is also the future. And so hopefully, especially with the packaging that we get from EV drivetrains, if we get hub motors and batteries in the floor, those kind of forward control one-box styling is just going to come back because it's a better use of space.
Especially if you need to cart more than one person around. It's sort of like hey, let's make an autonomous bus that's kind of more for personal transport rather than like public transportation.
It's all very Demolition Man. That's what it's.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting to see that EVs could be the great hope for like the van shape coming back as just kind of a default for passenger vehicles, at least.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking hub motors and below the floor batteries. Yeah, it just kind of makes sense. It doesn't make sense to make it like some sleek looking sports car thing. No, you want to just, especially autonomy, just put it, 4, 5, 6 people in it. However you do it with a sliding door, and there's your future van. They'll be back. So if they're not going to come back because of all the nostalgia from all the Radwood people and everything, they're going to come back in that form, I think.
Picture that Canoo EV, that form factor, but sort of like gussied up a little bit to look like the GMC Vandura A-Team van. I think that would be a nice mashup.
Yes.
I need to get Manny on that, our resident Photoshop expert. Him or Kevin Macaulay could get on that too. This has to be done.
Okay, that's good because I think it sort of bridges the gap between the 80s when vans were still pretty damn cool and and where vans are headed. I think that's a good good mashup there. But yeah, that's we had a lot of good. We didn't even touch on Dodgy Van. We didn't we didn't get into the dark side of vans, like the candy spray painted on the side. We didn't get into that. Probably maybe for the better.
That's the thing about it's van time as an account is, yes, okay, there's a dark side of vans. I recognize that. But, sure. I like to say the account is van positive because we don't, I get tagged in that free candy van creepy image a few times a year. Okay. And I'm just like, all right, it's great. We do have the hashtag it's van crime, though, when there's somewhat benign crimes being committed on or with vans, and so that's about as true crime as we get on the account.
Oh, very good, very good. I guess we can do one more thing real quick before we go. We don't have to spend a whole ton of time getting into the specifics, but ultimate dream van build. Who wants to take a shot at it first? And it's not going to be me since I'm talking about it.
All right, what I would like to see is a genuine performance van trim from any of the major automakers. Like, okay, I have a Transit Connect that has a Fiesta ST engine in it, a 1.6 turbo. No stick in the US. It would have been relatively trivial for Ford to have put the manual here and even put the 2.0 turbo as seen in the Focus ST, and then it would have been legitimately quick. But we don't even have to do something like that. Just a full-size Transit like rally package. Give me some stripes, give me some lowered suspension, and the 3.5 EcoBoost is already a thing pretty much hauls ass just before you start turning up the boost. I just want to see an automaker recognize the market for that. Once again, every other country gets this already. In England, okay. in England, you can buy it used to be a M Sport, now it's a MSRT. I think you can get a Transit Connect from the dealer with a body kit, redone interior, wheels. It looks like a rally inspired van. I don't think it's really that much faster than stock, but it's like the 1970s van package, but for the modern era. And you can get it like a Toyota Gazoo Racing Noah, with the whole body kit and everything. It's still probably slow, but somebody needs to embrace it in the US, and that'll help the van get back to being cool.
There we go. What about you, Ethan? What would your
I was trying to figure this out. I really liked my van that I had, my first Econoline. I was thinking, one of my favorite Matchbox cars that I had as a kid was of the Ford Supervan. So I don't know if anybody remembers the Ford Supervan.
That's why this account exists, was because of a thread about the truly one-off high-performance vans.
Yes,
so
it's the Supervan.
Yeah, so you should explain what that is for your listeners.
So basically it was a, one-off. I think let's see, when did it start? It started off in the 60s or 70s, where they basically just crammed a huge V8 into the van. And the one that I liked was, I believe it was the Supervan 2. So it basically had a Cosworth engine in it, and it could go, I'll have to look this up. So it could do a speed of 174 miles per hour. So the thing I liked about this, it was all white. It just had it was super low. It had these huge vents on the side, or air ducts on the side, blue stripes on the side with a Ford logo on the back. Yes. So you could probably talk a little bit about this more, Lee, but I want to recreate that with an Econoline. I want to take an Econoline and chop the springs and just paint it white and put that. I wouldn't even do anything to the engine. I just want to make it look like the Supervan, because I just love that Matchbox car when I was a kid.
That is a good look. It turns out the first generation Supervan, which, by the way, a Mark I Transit from England is definitely the kind of vehicle I want to have now. It looks like a Mini, kind of just scaled up into van form. But if you go see the Supervan aside, which I think had a GT40 engine, there's a hilarious clip of them so-called testing the Transit, but it was a marketing video. It's literally rally crossing this thing in the 60s against Minis and stuff. I got to get you the link for that. That is one of my favorite clips on the entire internet. But the second gen Supervan was basically a Group C car with a Transit body stuck on top. So it was completely removed from a production vehicle in every way.
Sure. It was basically just the body dropped on this insane Group C racing car.
Yeah. So when they made Supervan 3, they just dropped a new body onto the same Group C chassis, I believe.
That's funny.
That's crazy.
They recorded over Superman 2.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Dream vans to have, though. I mean, the Renault Espace F1 is the all-time king.
Gran Turismo 2 dreams coming true. That was
that looks so cool.
Such a fun car to drive, van to drive in Gran Turismo 2. It's wailing V10 Formula 1 engine. It was awesome. Well,
what about you,
funny.
Paul?
That's the thing, is everybody's talked about kind of performance vans, and I of course have followed suit with performance vans as well, but everybody could probably see the writing on the wall what's coming, but I would take a Daihatsu
Daihatsu.
Hijet. Yes,
of course.
Daihatsu Hijet, of course. But I would do something along the lines of some sort of tube frame and put some sort of a spicy motor in the back. I don't know if I'd go full 2JZ, but I would maybe a NA2J or something like that in the middle, and just tear around in that thing. That would be awesome. And
that would be frightening, is what you mean.
And it would still be a Daihatsu, so it works. It works. So
okay, that's a good call.
I think at the 2J, you still have that Daihatsu Toyota connection. It's
I think that's important.
It's aesthetically approved.
Yeah, I'd stick with the Toyota engine for sure, since Daihatsu doesn't really make an engine that would be super high performance to go back there. So yeah, just put a NA2J back there and it'd be awesome. So that's my cool van.
All right.
For sure.
Awesome.
I think you said it a little bit ago. We had a lot of good van discussion tonight. It was a van filled night. I can think of a bunch of other horrible things to say, but I'm going to stop. But yeah, no, it was a good time for sure. So I think we can wrap it up from there. Do we want to tell everyone where we can find each other on the social medias?
Yeah. So Lee, where can everybody find you? Obviously it's van time, but is there anything else you want to tell people about your Twitter or where they can find you?
Just on Twitter, where it's van time, and you can also find me on Instagram. I'm Sloaney. And we'll leave a little mystery in for other Twitter accounts for a while.
Ooh, okay. Oh, geez. Mystery. What about you, Paul? Where can everybody find you?
Everyone can find me at Paul's Finest Hour on both Instagram and Twitter. And that's it. I haven't made any new social media accounts. So
No, that's good. That's good.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure its hijet time is not taken, Paul. You know,
Ooh.
if you're looking for some ideas.
Ooh.
You need to spend more time on Twitter there, Paul. I think you should grab that.
Yeah, I think. Oh man. All right.
All right.
I'm gonna have to do it.
We might need to create a Stanza Wagon account too while I'm at it.
It stands a safety time.
Exactly. That's perfect.
There we go.
Everybody can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mr. Ethan Tufts, and youtube.com/Hello Road. Just did a video about my Porsche 944 Turbo and how there is a hole in the brake rotor. I just got a Chevy Blazer RS that I'm going to be doing a video with soon, so that's coming up. And I think that's it. Is that an episode? Is that
That's
we don't have, all right.
That's it.
Thanks so much for joining us, Lee, and maybe we'll do another van episode and we'll have you back.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me.
Cool. All right.
Thank
Bye,
you very
everybody.
much.